Hi Manasa, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Manjushri.
Could you please share your PPT and
Yeah, okay. Today's topic is about user variable. Your user variable is nothing but it acts as a filters in the forms. Here the you can see some of the usages of user variable in some of the following artifacts like data forms, runtime prompts, business rules, smart view. Here, next slide, creation of user variable. What is the use of user variable? User variable is to limit the number of users in a particular form. Here, what is the difference between user variable and substitution variable? Here, in a user variable, it is specified to the particular form, and the user only can change or update the user variable. Here, user cannot create the user variable. Only the admins can create the user variable. About substitution variable, substitution variable cannot be changed. Only admin have the access to change it. In a substitution variable, it is fixed for the all users, and they cannot modified. Here, in which case do we use user variable over substitution variable? If you need to select a user variable in a particular user's preferences, then we have to select a user variable rather than substitution variable. For example, in terms of entities, if you want to select any one of the entity, then you will use the user variable rather than substitution variable. Here, can you show me how to create a user variable from the following cases? Note, since we don't have the list of users in the application, try to explain how user variable behaves by using the admin user only by using the use case assumptions below. Use case 1, assume user 1 is the owner of any two entities. Assign those two entities as values to the entity dimension. Okay, here I'm going to the application. I will navigate through application. Here in the navigation, click on variables under tools. Here the user variable. Now we are going to create a user variable. Here this is the icon, plus icon. We have to click on it to create a user variable. Here in the PPT, they shows that we have to create a user variable under two entities. So I am selecting entity dimension. Back to application. Here I am selecting entity. I am giving a user variable name. I am giving it as user V. User VE. Here we have to select the entities which we want to add. Here under segments on EN01, I am selecting Singapore 1 and Singapore 2, two entities. Here you can see EN03 and EN04. We have to save it. Now the user variable have saved. Before now I'm going back to PPT. Here we have already created the user variable. Going back to next slide. In this slide we have the user variable in data forms. Can you reuse any data form and show me how to use the user variable as per user case 1, slide 3. Okay, can you explain how the user 1 can access the data forms which is created based on the above question in detail of how the entities are restricted to the two entities of ownership? Should user 1 supposed to access any of the entities rather than two entities how own in the data forms? Back to application. Here, before going to the forms, we have to give user preferences to the particular variable. Click on user preferences. This is the user variable which we have created early. We have to give the user preferences here. Or we have selected two entities. So we have to select from that. We can see only two entities under EN01 because we have selected only two members under EN01. I am taking EN01 3 Singapore 1. Click OK. Now we have to go to forms. Under library, I have already created a folder. In that folder, I have created a sample user form. I'm editing it. Click on it. In layouts, here this is the hardcode member. Now I am selecting user variable. This is the user variable which I have created now. I'm taking it. Click OK. Now I will and we have to save it. Okay. I'm showing the in preview. Okay, 1 second. We have to save the user preferences, then go to forms. Here we can see the hardcode member which I have already created in the form under the dimension of A01 France. This is the user variable which we have created now, Singapore. This is how we can see the user variable in forms. If you want to select the another entity which we created in the user variable, we have to go back to user preferences and we have to select en01 under 04 Singapore 2. Then we will get the details of the Singapore 2 form details. Back to PPT, and here one thing, we can only see the two entities here. I will show in the preferences, user preferences. Here we can see the EN03 Singapore 1. If we select here the another entity, then only we can know the details of these member in forms. I will show and again also. I'm saving it. I take another member. I'm saving it. Click OK and go to forms again. Preview. Here we can see the EN04 Singapore 2 now. In this way, you can change the members through user preferences. Going back to PPT, can you show me how to enable a dynamic user variable? Take a parent entity of an example, show how only the children of that parent entity are filtered in the data forms. Okay, back to PPT, sorry, back to application. Click on navigation, go to forms. Here in this form, we have to select other options. In other options, you can see dynamic user variable. here if you disable it, you can't see a dynamic user variable in the form. You have to enable it, and you have to select the user variable which you have created. This is the user variable which I have created. I'm selecting it and clicking on save. Click OK. This is how the user dynamic user variable is added in the form. Go back. Uh, if you want to see any parent any if here in the back to PPT, if you want to take any parent entity as an example, show how many children of that parent is filtered in the data forms. Back to application. Here in other form, I will show how to take parent entity. Go to layouts. Here I have already filtered this. Under EN01, I have already taken the child members of EN01. I'm clearing it, and I will edit again. Click on edit. Go to total geography. Under segments, you have EN01. Select it. Click OK. And you have to preview it. You can see the, sorry, I took 1 second. We have to take children members here. We have to take and click OK. Then we can see the childs under the EN01. This is under we can see the childs of EN01. Back to PPT. Here, when the data form is saved, the business rule should be run only in the context of entity selection made. Okay, back to PPT. I'm opening a form, user variable form. Here in the form, you have to go to business rules. Here we can select the rule which we want to give. Just click on it and drag it. And here we can see the run before load, run after load. Whichever you want to load in the form, you can click it. Click it and you have to save it. This is the business rule, how we add business rule in forms. Another slide. Going to another slide. Here, usage of user variable in runtime prompts. Can we use user variable in runtime prompts? Yes. If yes, can you limit the user variable in the runtime prompt to able to restrict user one from the access the entities then rather than she owns? Okay. Back to application. Finish it. We have to go to navigation. Under create and manage, click on rules. In select actions. In that, click on variable designer. In this EPM cloud, we have to select global. If you select global, it concludes all the cubes. I mean console and RAIDs. If you select the FCCS 2, it only takes console cubes. Here we have to take a new one. This is the runtime prompts earlierly created. Now I am creating another runtime prompt. Here I am giving here under type string, you have to select member. As we are giving it for a member, we have to check the runtime prompt here. Here in the dimension type, we have to select the dimension. We already used a user variable in entity dimension, so I'm clicking on entity. Here we can limit the members here. In the PPT shows that we have, can you limit the user variable in runtime prompts? Here we can, back to application. Here we can limit the members. If you limit the members, then not other users cannot modify it. Doesn't it here? Can give the same default value. Here I'm entering. Please enter the entity. Save it. Here you can see the runtime prompt which we have given now. Enter now. Go back to system views here. In that, expand EPM cloud, expand FCCS2, expand console. In that rules, we have to select one of the rule. I am creating a rule here. New object. In actions, click on new object. Give the object name rule. Here I am giving user variable 3. Click OK. Okay. Here we can see the another tab is open for us in a user variable 3. Here we have to give the prompt. Here I am fixing the prompt value. Here fix. I'm directly giving the runtime prompt here. We have to save it and validate it. Yeah. The rule is validated here. Click OK. And we have to deploy that rule. Deploy it. This is how runtime prompt is deployed in a user variable. Back to PPT. Use this runtime prompt in the business rule. It shows me how it works. Okay, back to PPT. Go to navigation. Click on rules under dashboards. We can see the user variable 3 which we have created now. Click here. Click to launch. Here you can see the runtime prompt which we have entered now in runtime prompt. Back to PPT. Going to next slide. Usage of user variables in business rules. Can you show me how the use of business rules, user variable in business rules? Back to application. Here we have to select these integrations and we have to launch it. In this way, the business rules are used in the user variable. We go back to the PPT. Here, can you explain what is the advantages does the usage of user variable has over the substitution variable? Here in the user variable, we can change the members, but in substitution variable, we can't change the members. So we are using user variable over rather than substitution variable. Here, can you explain which of the following approach is recommended, not recommended for using entity in business rules? Please explain why if you can. I recommended using runtime prompts because it is easy to the user to work on the application based on runtime prompts. I won't recommend it hard code entities because if you use hard code entities, if you want to make any changes in the form, you have to go to forms, layouts, and we have to change the hardcore members repeatedly if you want to change. So I won't recommend hardcore member. Going back to next slide, can you explain how to insert user variable in Smart View? Okay. Um, Now I'm going to Excel sheet, Smart View panel. Here you can see. Here you can see the user variable form. I'm clicking on it. I'm I'm I am disabling the suppressed missing blocks. Here I'm giving the user variable user variable E. I'm refreshing it. You can see the user variable of EN04 Singapore. This is the details of this entity. This is how Smart View is used in a user variable. Back to PPT. This is the following artifacts we can use in the user variable. Um, Thank you. Manjusha? Excuse me, Manjusha.
Yeah, I am here only.
Thank you, Manjusha. I am done with my PPT.
Yeah, thank you, Manasa. You can leave now.
Thank you, Manjusha.